This is the only reason a person comes back into your life again after hurting you, and that is psychology tips. Have you ever noticed something strange about life? The people who hurt us the most, the ones who walked away without looking back, they often find a way to return. Not when you're still bleeding, not when you're begging for answers, but later, when the damage is already done. They come back after the silence, after the heartbreak, after you've learned how to live without them. And the question is always the same: why? Why would someone who ignored your loyalty, your effort, your love, suddenly show up again in your messages, your memories, your life? Here's the truth most people don't talk about. There is only one real reason people come back after hurting you. And once you understand this psychological truth, you'll stop blaming yourself, you'll stop romanticizing the past, and you'll finally see your value clearly. So stay with me, because this message might not just explain their return, it might change how you see yourself forever. And one, they come back when life teaches them what you already knew. They come back for one reason most people never expect, not because of regret, not because of nostalgia, and not because you were perfect. Pause there. That surprise matters. They come back when life quietly teaches them the lesson you already lived, slowly, patiently, without explanation. And when that lesson lands, it lands hard. When you loved them, you didn't make noise about it. You didn't perform. You showed up. You gave attention that felt calm, not consuming. You offered comfort that didn't ask for repayment. You gave honesty without pressure. You created a sense of belonging that felt natural, not earned. That kind of connection doesn't announce itself, it settles in, and that's why it's often misunderstood. Here's the part that triggers curiosity. They didn't reject you because you lacked value. They left because they didn't yet understand it. Don't rush past that. People don't walk away from what feels rare. They walk away from what feels stable before they know how rare stability is. They believed something else would feel lighter, faster, more exciting. Be honest. Many people confuse excitement with fulfillment. That confusion always has a cost. Life collects that cost quietly. Out there, they meet people who only engage when it's easy, people who don't stay present during silence, people who disappear when emotional effort is required. The contrast builds, not overnight, not all at once, moment by moment. And then curiosity turns inward. They start remembering you, not the arguments, not the ending, the feeling, how being with you lowered their stress, how your presence made decisions feel clearer, how your consistency created peace instead of confusion. That realization hurts because it can't be undone. This is one of the most overlooked psychology tips in modern relationships. Real connection doesn't repeat itself on demand. Don't misunderstand this. They don't come back because you waited. They don't come back because you stayed available. They come back because life compares experiences for them. And comparison always reveals truth. That's real love advice men should hear earlier than they do. Think about dating tips for a moment. Charm opens doors. Consistency builds homes. Excitement fades. Stability compounds. And when it comes to attracting women, grounded presence always outlasts performance. Every time. That's not a theory. That's the pattern. Here's the emphasis most people miss. When someone returns after hurting you, it doesn't mean they suddenly became wiser. It means reality became louder than their assumptions. You must understand this clearly. Don't rush to reopen what was closed. Don't confuse return with readiness. Be observant. Let actions speak without interruption. That's another one of those psychology tips that protects your future. In real love advice, the lesson is sharp but fair. Value is often invisible until it's absent. In dating tips, the rule is simple. The right people don't need to lose you to recognize you. And if your goal is to attract women who respect depth, you must first respect your own boundaries. So slow down. Feel the rhythm of this truth. Be steady. Be clear. Be grounded. That is why they come back. Not because you asked, not because you chased, but because life taught them in its own quiet way what you already knew all along. To anchor this truth in your mind, comment this affirmation below and interact with the community. My value is calm, stable, and recognized through my absence. 2. They come back when life gets hard without you. That is the truth most people don't see at first. Not because they plan to return, not because they suddenly changed, but because pressure reveals what comfort once hid. When they were with you, everything felt easier. Life didn't magically lose its problems. Bills still arrived. Responsibilities still waited. But something was different. You were there. Your presence softened the weight of the day. Your calm steadied the chaos. This is love psychology at work. We often mistake emotional support for normalcy until it's gone. Their stress, their emotions, their dreams. You helped carry those, even when you didn't notice. A quiet word, a steady look, a moment of understanding. That is not dramatic love. That is reliable love. And reliable love is rare. But when you're gone, life becomes heavier. Not immediately. At first, there's relief, silence, space. Then reality shows up. The nights feel longer. Decisions feel harder. Motivation fades. There is no one to encourage them, no one to listen, no one to stand by them like you did. That realization doesn't arrive all at once. It arrives in moments. A tough morning, a setback, a quiet evening with no one to call. This is where relationship goals become clear, too late for some, but not for you. They realize the strength they once had was coming from your presence, not your control, not your sacrifice, your steadiness. Be clear about this. You were not their solution. You were their foundation. The motivation they had was coming from your words. Words matter. Spoken calmly, given honestly, repeated consistently. That is modern Stoic energy. Support without noise, strength without drama. The peace they felt was coming from your love. Peace is underestimated until it disappears. Don't chase validation. Don't wait for regret to return as an apology. Be grounded. Be firm. Be whole. It hits them slowly. Growth often does. So does awareness. Life was better with you. Yes, but remember this. Your value does not depend on their realization. Understand the lesson. Honor your role. And move forward wiser. Love psychology teaches this. Relationship goals confirm it. The modern Stoic lives it. You must keep walking with clarity, with strength, with peace. In October 2019, in Columbus, Ohio, Mark was 52 years old and convinced he needed space. After 12 years together, he told his partner, Linda, that life felt repetitive, too predictable, too calm. He believed calm meant stagnant. Linda didn't argue. She didn't beg. She simply said, I hope you find what you're looking for. Then she left. At first, Mark felt light. No check-ins. No shared routines. No quiet conversations at night. Freedom felt good for about 3 months. By January 2020, winter had settled in hard. Work slowed. Stress climbed. Evenings grew long. There was no one asking how his day went. No one reminding him to eat better, sleep earlier, breathe deeper. That's when the weight showed up. When his car broke down one icy morning, there was no calm voice on the phone. When his brother fell ill, there was no steady presence beside him in the hospital waiting room. He realized something uncomfortable. Life hadn't been easier because circumstances were better. Life had been easier because Linda was there. In April 2020, during lockdown, the silence became unbearable. Mark found himself rereading old messages. Simple encouragement, thoughtful words, quiet strength. That's when love psychology hit him clearly. The motivation he once had wasn't self-generated. It was supported. In June 2020, he drove past their old neighborhood. Same streets, same houses, different awareness. He didn't return to reclaim her. He returned to acknowledge the truth. Life had been better with her. And that realization came too late. For Mark, it became a lesson in relationship goals and a path toward becoming a modern Stoic, stronger, calmer, and finally aware of the value of steady love. 3. They come back because you were their safe place. They come back for one reason only: you are their emotional safe place. Not convenient, not a habit. Safety. You were not just a person in their life. You were in a state of calm, a slower heartbeat, a quiet mind, an inner shelter. The old Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. People may roam, experiment, and chase stimulation, but they only build one true psychological home. And for them, that home was you. In modern life, everything is loud, rushed, competitive, and demanding. Attention is pulled in every direction. Emotions are constantly triggered. Over time, that chaos exhausts the nervous system. When that exhaustion hits, the mind starts searching for where it once felt steady. That is when people remember the man who brought peace instead of pressure. They return when distraction stops working, when excitement loses its edge, when stimulation no longer masks inner fatigue. This is not romance. This is psychology. This is female psychology responding to emotional regulation, consistency, and presence. You understood their moods without interrogating them. You supported their goals without needing applause. You accepted imperfections without keeping mental records. You did not turn the past into a weapon. The world drains people. Constantly, relentlessly. A high-value man restores them. That contrast is unforgettable. As Marcus Aurelius said, nowhere can a person find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in their own soul. With you, their mind was quieter. With you, life felt manageable again. This is where Stoicism separates men. Most chase intensity. Few provide calm. Most react. Few remain centered. Stoicism is not emotional distance, it is emotional mastery. An old Stoic mindset teaches that strength comes from self-command, not control over others. When you live this way, people feel grounded around you. Their nervous system settles. Their thoughts slow down. That is why your absence becomes noticeable later, not immediately. Seneca warned that peace is recognized only after it is gone, and this is why those who leave often circle back once life teaches them what they lost. Here is the instruction. Do not chase. Do not explain. Do not negotiate your standards. Maintain your structure. Maintain your calm. Maintain your boundaries. Let reality educate them better than words ever could. A high-value man understands that his role is not to convince, but to remain solid. Whether they return or not, you win. Because when you live by Stoicism, you are not dependent on outcomes. You are anchored in yourself. This is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. This is female psychology responding to emotional leadership. This is the power of Stoicism lived daily. Be calm. Be the standard. Be the man people remember when the noise finally wears them down. A man in his late 40s once shared this story. He had been married for over a decade, built a stable life, worked hard, kept his emotions steady, and rarely raised his voice. Over time, his partner began to feel restless. Not unhappy, just overstimulated by the outside world. New social circles, new attention, new excitement. She convinced herself that calm meant something was missing. So she left. Not for another man specifically, but for something more. He didn't chase her. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He stayed disciplined. He focused on his health, his work, and his inner order. Very old Stoic behavior. Quiet, grounded, controlled. Months passed. The novelty she chased started to fade. The new life required constant emotional output, constant proving, constant reacting. What once felt exciting became exhausting. The noise never stopped. One night, after a long day, she realized something uncomfortable. She hadn't felt truly calm in a very long time. That was when she remembered him. Not the conversations, not the routines. The feeling, the way her mind used to slow down around him. The way problems felt smaller. The way she could just exist without defending herself. That memory didn't come from nostalgia. It came from her nervous system remembering safety. Female psychology doesn't forget that. A year later, she reached out. No drama, no accusations, just honesty. She said life felt heavy. She said she missed the peace. He listened. He didn't gloat. He didn't reopen the past. He had become a high-value man not by changing who he was, but by staying centered. That's Stoicism in real life. Not coldness, not distance, emotional leadership. And whether she stayed or not, the truth was clear. The calm he provided could not be replaced. If this message spoke to you, support the channel by liking this video and sharing it with someone who needs peace and clarity. Subscribe for more psychology tips, Stoic wisdom, and real insights on emotional strength and relationships. To lock this lesson into your mindset, comment the affirmation below and engage with the community. I am a calm, grounded, and irreplaceable safe place. 4. They come back because karma shows them the truth. Don't frame this as punishment. Be clear about it. This is a lesson. Slow, precise, inevitable. When someone hurts a sincere heart, life doesn't rush to correct them. It waits. It waits until they are ready to feel what they once dismissed without a second thought. When they are distant toward your loyalty, they eventually meet someone who treats commitment like an inconvenience. When they take your effort for granted, they find themselves standing in the same empty space, overlooked and unseen. That is when understanding begins. Not through explanations, not through debates, through lived experience. One of the most overlooked psychology tips is this: people don't truly understand kindness until its absence becomes uncomfortable. You must understand something important. When they walked away, they were not rejecting your value. They were revealing their inability to recognize it at the time. Time corrects that, quietly, patiently. When life places them exactly where you once stood, when they experience the silence, the waiting, the unanswered messages, something inside them shifts. Awareness grows where certainty once lived. That's when comparison begins. At first, it's subtle, then it becomes unavoidable. They start to notice the difference between someone who was consistently present and someone who only appeared when it suited them. They feel the contrast between being genuinely cared for and merely being kept around. This is where love advice becomes grounded in reality. Connection is often understood most clearly after it's gone. Be calm. Don't chase explanations. Don't demand apologies. Let time do the heavy lifting. When they return, it's not because you waited. It's because they changed. Pride softens. Defenses loosen. The noise in their mind quiets enough for truth to speak. And the truth is simple: you mattered. That return is rarely dramatic. More often, it's modest. A message, a question, a pause filled with sincerity. This is where many dating tips get misunderstood, because attracting someone back isn't about tactics. It's about self-respect. Be steady. Be grounded. Be consistent with your values. That quiet strength speaks louder than persuasion ever could, and it's a principle echoed across countless psychology tips. These insights reach beyond romance. They explain why people circle back after seasons of distance. They don't return to recreate the past. They return because they finally understand it. And if your path includes love advice, dating tips, or even discussions around how to attract women, remember this: attraction grows where clarity and integrity live. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to convince anyone. Be who you were when you gave sincerely, only wiser now, more aware. That is how life teaches. That is why people come back. 5. They come back when regret starts whispering in their ears. Regret is silent at first. It doesn't knock. It doesn't shout. It slips in quietly, like a draft under a closed door. It starts like a soft voice inside their heart, a memory of your smile, a moment of your kindness, a flash of how peaceful they felt when you were around. That peace matters more than people admit, especially to men who've lived long enough to know the noise of life. Bills, pressure, expectations. Peace becomes rare. And when it's gone, the absence is loud. At first, they brush it off. Just nostalgia, they tell themselves. Just a phase. Don't believe that lie. Regret grows when ignored. The whisper becomes louder, louder, until it's no longer a whisper at all. It follows them into quiet moments, late nights, early mornings, long drives with no music on. This is where love psychology shows its hand. The human mind doesn't miss chaos. It misses safety. It misses consistency. It misses being understood without having to explain everything. Then the questions start. Why did I let them go? Why did I treat them that way? Why didn't I appreciate what I had? These questions aren't random. They're the mind trying to make sense of loss. They replay moments like an old film reel. Things you said, things you didn't say, chances they didn't take. Regret doesn't let a person sleep peacefully. It shows up when the world goes quiet, when distractions fade, when ego has no audience. This is where modern Stoic thinking becomes unavoidable. A man can outrun emotions during the day, but at night, the truth catches up. You can't negotiate with your own conscience. You must face it. Regret keeps reminding them of the mistake they made, not to punish them, but to teach them. Pain is a teacher that never sends reminders politely. And here's the part most people miss. They don't come back because they are lonely. They don't come back because life failed them. They come back when regret becomes heavier than their pride. That is the turning point. Pride resists growth. Regret demands reflection. When reflection wins, action follows. This aligns with relationship goals that last beyond surface attraction. Real connection isn't about excitement alone. It's about emotional safety, shared calm, mutual respect. Be clear about this. Not everyone who feels regret deserves access again. Don't confuse remorse with readiness. Don't confuse words with change. A man returning is often trying to correct his own story, to rewrite the ending, to see if peace can be reclaimed. That's love psychology at work again. The brain seeks resolution. The heart seeks harmony. And unresolved bonds stay open longer than we expect. So if they come back, understand why. Not from arrogance, from awareness. Be grounded. Be honest. Be wise. Modern Stoic wisdom teaches this. You can acknowledge regret without surrendering your boundaries. You can listen without reopening old wounds. Relationship goals are built on clarity, not confusion. And love psychology reminds us that growth only happens when truth is faced. That is why they come back. Not for drama, not for control, but because regret finally spoke loud enough to be heard. 6. They come back because their connection with you never truly ended. They come back, but not for the reason most people think. At first, it feels confusing. Time has passed, silence has stretched on, life moved forward. So why now? Because some connections don't end. They pause. Psychology is clear on this. When a bond is unfinished, the mind keeps it open in the background. Quiet, persistent, waiting. You were not erased. You were stored. A reference point, a standard. And that matters more than distance ever could. Here's the part most men miss. They don't come back because you chased them. They don't come back because you waited. They come back because you left a mark. Curiosity pulls them first, then memory, then comparison. Modern life gives endless options but very little depth. When someone experiences depth once, everything else feels thinner afterward. That's when the pull starts. That's when the questions begin. That's when the silence breaks. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." You became part of that color. An old Stoic understands this instinctively. Influence doesn't announce itself. It settles in slowly. Stoicism teaches that real power is quiet, consistent, and grounded. That's why Stoicism still works in modern relationships, even in a world addicted to speed and validation. From the lens of female psychology, emotional memory strengthens around stability, direction, and certainty, not intensity, not drama, certainty. When those qualities disappear, the absence teaches the lesson. That's when they realized what was rare. And this is critical. Their return is not the reward. Your growth is. A high-value man doesn't interpret a return as proof of worth. He already knows his worth. He evaluates calmly. He observes behavior, not words. He listens without rushing. He decides without pressure. That is Stoicism in action. Seneca wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." Time often reveals the truth, and truth brings people back. But here is your instruction. Clear, direct, final. Do not regret. Do not over-explain. Do not negotiate your standards. Curiosity brought them back. Your composure decides what happens next. In today's world, where attention is cheap and connection is shallow, the man who lives with restraint, purpose, and self-command stands apart. That's why the old Stoic path still wins. That's why Stoicism keeps producing results. That's why understanding female psychology matters for men who want clarity, not confusion. Repeat this until it's embedded. You don't attract returns by waiting, you attract returns by moving forward. A high-value man doesn't reopen old chapters emotionally, he reviews them logically. If alignment exists now, he proceeds slowly. If it doesn't, he closes the door peacefully. No resentment, no ego, just direction. And that's mastery, that's control, that's victory. When someone comes back, it means the connection was real. When you choose calmly, it means you've evolved. In meditations, there is a quiet lesson that explains why people often return only after they've lost something real. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that we cannot control who stays, who leaves, or who understands too late. What we can control is the man we become when no one is watching. That is where real leverage is formed, not through persuasion, not through emotion, through inner order. Throughout the book, he returns to one core idea: dignity and self-command shape how the world responds to us. When applied to modern relationships, the message becomes sharp. The moment you stop orbiting someone else's choices, they begin to feel your absence more clearly. This aligns directly with Stoicism and modern psychology. Emotional gravity forms around consistency, not urgency. From the lens of female psychology, the man who remains centered after loss becomes unforgettable because he breaks the expected pattern. He doesn't chase, he doesn't collapse, he continues. Aurelius urges the reader to be sufficient unto yourself. That single line defines the old Stoic mindset. When you don't unravel after separation, when you refine instead of react, you become a reference point, a quiet standard others measure against without realizing it. This is where the identity of a high-value man is forged, not in being chosen again, but in no longer needing to be chosen. He doesn't seek closure, conversations, or emotional explanations. His completeness is already established. So when someone returns, it isn't because he pulled them back. It's because life led them back to the standard he represents. Time revealed the difference. Experience exposed the contrast. The book makes one truth unavoidable. Mastery begins the moment you stop needing outcomes. And when you live that fully, your presence lingers long after you're gone. Unfinished connections resurface not by accident, but as consequences of quiet strength. 7. They come back when they realize no one else loves like you do. No one else loves the way you did. Love today is often rushed and conditional, built on convenience and mood rather than meaning. It looks exciting at first because it asks for so little and promises so much, but it fades fast. Be honest with yourself. What you gave was different. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't performative. It was steady, intentional, and real. You didn't love attention. You didn't care for applause. You showed up when it was boring, when it was uncomfortable, when patience was required. That is rare. That is the kind of love people don't recognize while they have it. Don't underestimate what consistency does to the human mind. Don't forget what calm care does to the heart. Psychology tips tell us people often confuse intensity with intimacy, chasing excitement while overlooking depth. Sparks feel thrilling. They don't last. You did. Your presence felt safe. Your effort felt genuine. Your affection wasn't loud, but it was dependable. That depth doesn't disappear when a relationship ends. It stays. The mind remembers where it felt accepted without pressure, seen without performance. Love advice often talks about attraction, but real attraction over time comes from emotional reliability. The kind that allows someone to breathe. The kind that makes chaos quiet. Be that person, and you leave a mark that time cannot erase. When they move on and try again, they expect the same patience, the same understanding, the same loyalty. But they don't find it. Not because others don't care, but because not everyone loves with intention. Dating tips will tell you people come back for familiarity. The deeper reason is comparison. Every new connection becomes a silent measurement against what they lost. Every disappointment reminds them of what they once had and didn't value. You must understand this. Absence creates clarity. When you are no longer there giving freely, the cost of that loss becomes obvious. They remember how you listened without needing to win, how you stayed calm when emotions ran high, how you chose understanding instead of pride. Attracting women's advice often focuses on confidence and mystery, but emotional maturity is what lingers, especially with time. Peace becomes more attractive than excitement. Psychology tips show that regret doesn't come from what we never had. It comes from what we had and mishandled. That is why they come back. Not because they suddenly changed. Not because they finally figured everything out. They come back because life taught them through contrast. Be clear about this. Their return is not proof you should reopen the door. It is proof your value is real. Don't chase validation. Don't reopen wounds just to feel chosen again. Be grounded. Be selective. That is self-respect. Love advice reminds us that being irreplaceable doesn't mean being available forever. Dating tips emphasize standards for a reason. You were a gift they didn't know how to hold. Time taught them the lesson they refused to learn when you were still there. Attract women by honoring yourself, not by waiting for someone to recognize you late. Psychology tips make one thing clear. Self-respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. Remember that. They came back because your love set a standard their heart couldn't forget. And whether you welcome them or not, never doubt this truth. What you gave mattered. And love like that always leaves a mark. 8. They come back when God removes their blindness. They come back for one reason only. Not luck. Not nostalgia. Not loneliness. They come back when clarity hits them. When God removes the blindness from their eyes. Because people don't lose what they value. They lose what they fail to recognize. At first, they couldn't see you. Ego blocked their vision. Confusion blurred their judgment. Immaturity delayed their wisdom. God allowed this separation on purpose. Not to punish either of you, but to teach. Loss is the classroom where vision is restored. An old Stoic understands this. Stoicism teaches patience without weakness, strength without noise. You don't chase clarity in others. You maintain clarity in yourself. You keep your posture. You stay grounded. You move forward. Only after discomfort. Only after consequences. Only after reflection. That's when growth begins. And when growth begins, their eyes open. Suddenly, they see what was always there. Your consistency. Your integrity. Your heart. Your value. This is where female psychology becomes clear. Emotional certainty often follows emotional contrast. Absence creates perspective. Silence creates understanding. When the pressure disappears, appreciation appears. That's not manipulation. That's human nature. A high-value man doesn't wait at the door. He doesn't pause his life. He builds. He sharpens his mind. He strengthens his body. He deepens his faith. He lets time do the explaining. In modern life, this lesson matters more than ever. Fast choices, short attention spans, endless distractions. But respect still follows discipline. Recognition still follows consistency. As Marcus Aurelius said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Stoicism reminds you to stay steady. Female psychology confirms that certainty grows when you stop chasing. An old Stoic knows that silence after departure speaks louder than words spoken in desperation. Here is the instruction. Clear and final. Do not anchor your worth to someone else's vision. Anchor it to God's purpose and your standards. Because a high-value man is not chosen because he begs to be seen. He is chosen because he never forgets who he is. And when they come back, remember this. They didn't return because you waited. They returned because you didn't. 9. They come back because they finally feel the pain they gave you. They don't come back because they suddenly miss you. They come back because something didn't go the way they expected. Life didn't reward the choice they made. The silence they once ignored now follows them. The confidence they had slowly fades. And that's when a question starts to grow in their mind. Did I lose something that actually mattered? This is where real psychology tips begin, not with romance, not with hope, but with awareness. When the story they told themselves falls apart, curiosity turns into regret, and regret turns into the need to reconnect. That is when understanding begins. Not before. Never before. Pain has a strange honesty to it. It strips away excuses. It removes the comfort of denial. When they feel what you once felt, they don't just remember you, they feel you. Be clear about this. People don't change because of logic alone. They change because something finally reaches their emotions. This is one of those psychology tips most people learn too late. Don't assume they suddenly became wiser overnight. They didn't. They were taught. By experience. By loss. By the quiet realization that what they dismissed so easily now weighs on them every single day. That is why they come back carrying guilt, not confidence and apologies, not demands and fear, not certainty. You must understand this if you want real psychology tips that actually protect your peace. When someone hurts you and leaves, they often believe you'll simply adjust, move on, or forget. But when they themselves face rejection, absence, or emotional distance, a mirror appears. And in that reflection, they finally see their own actions clearly. That is when regret grows roots. This isn't romance. This is human behavior. This is why so much love advice misses the point by telling you to chase explanations instead of letting reality do the teaching. Be calm. Be grounded. Don't rush to reopen doors just because someone knocks with emotion in their voice. Feeling pain doesn't always mean they learned how to love better. It only means they finally understand what they lost. That is an important difference, especially for men who want clarity, not confusion. Dating tips that truly work are never about persuasion. They are about position. When you stayed silent and chose self-respect, you became unforgettable. When you didn't beg, you became real. When you didn't argue your worth, you made it undeniable. That is how you attract women who respect you, not because you chased, but because you stood still while life did the work. Use psychology tips wisely. Let pain teach them, not define you. Let love advice remind you that someone returning is proof of impact, not proof of compatibility. Be honest with yourself. Be selective. And remember this, when someone comes back after hurting you, it's not because they suddenly discovered love. It's because they finally discovered loss. And that lesson arrived right on time. 10. They come back because you moved on emotionally. They come back for one reason. Not luck. Not fate. Not a coincidence. They come back because you moved on emotionally. Ironically, people return at the exact moment you detach. When you stop crying. When you stop chasing. When you stop hoping for a message. When you stop breaking yourself to be understood. That silence you stepped into, they feel it immediately. Your energy once anchored them. Your presence once gave safety. Your attention once made things feel certain. And when that energy pulls back, when it becomes calm and unavailable, their nervous system notices the loss. The absence speaks louder than your words ever did. This is pure psychology. Detachment creates contrast. Contrast creates awareness. Female psychology responds not to pressure, but to emotional certainty. When you are no longer trying to be chosen, you suddenly become noticeable again. An old Stoic understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." That's Stoicism in action. Not coldness. Not avoidance. Control. Control over reaction. Control over need. Modern life proves this every day. The man who stays grounded, focused, and emotionally independent doesn't beg for connection. He builds presence. He builds direction. And direction creates gravity. This is how a high-value man is formed. Not through manipulation. Not through games. Through self-command. Through standards. Through the ability to walk forward without looking back. Epictetus put it simply, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. When you live this, the dynamic changes. You stop waiting. You stop checking. You stop replaying old conversations. Momentum replaces longing. And that momentum is what makes people return. Not because you called them back, but because you left emotionally. Stoicism teaches this truth clearly. peace is strength. Distance creates respect. Emotional independence is not the end of connection. It is the beginning of it. That is why they come back. And by the time they do, you are already ahead. You want the real answer, not the comforting one, not the dramatic one. The true reason someone comes back into your life after hurting you is simple, and psychology tips make this painfully clear. They come back when life finally removes the blindfold, when experience exposes what distraction once hid, when they see, without illusion, that you were the calm they took for granted, the peace they underestimated, the love that didn't demand but quietly held everything together. Don't mistake this for sudden growth. Be honest. Awareness arrived late, not character overnight. They returned because reality taught them what words could not. The noise faded. The excitement emptied out. The promises elsewhere failed to deliver. And in that silence, the memory of you stood still and solid. Not flashy, not chaotic, just real. Their heart already knew it back then. Their soul felt it too. But clarity only comes when comparison ends. That is a core truth in psychology tips, love advice, and dating tips most men never hear. Don't assume they came back because they changed for you. Be clear. They came back because life corrected them, because absence sharpened memory, because contrast revealed value. You were not just someone they loved. You were the environment where they felt aligned, grounded, and understood. That is why the return feels emotional. That is why it feels urgent. They are not chasing you. They are chasing the version of themselves that existed when you were present. This distinction matters if you want to attract women through strength, not longing. You must stay grounded here. Don't rush. Don't confuse realization with readiness. Be steady. Be observant. Attract women not by reopening doors too quickly, but by honoring the consistency and self-respect that made you unforgettable in the first place. That is real love advice. That is power. So here's the summary. People don't come back because they suddenly become better. They come back because truth eventually surfaces. Because life proves what the heart once ignored. Because you were the blessing they didn't recognize until it was gone. Their heart knew it. Their souls felt it. Their life confirmed it. That is the reason. Quiet. Clear. Final. Final message for you. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think people deserve a second chance after they hurt you? Or do you believe some lessons are meant to stay in the past? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is a safe space to share, reflect, and discuss. Remember this, and remember it clearly. Not everyone who comes back deserves access to your life again. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your heart. And you never owe anyone your self-respect. People return for many reasons, but you decide who stays. And choosing yourself is not selfish. It's wisdom. Welcome to Blessing of Stoicism. If you're curious about the hidden truths of the mind and heart, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a truth that could change the way you see your life.